Welcome to the Deep Dive,
Emerald City Hockey's Seattle Kraken podcast.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to the Deep Dive, Emerald City Hockey Seattle Kraken podcast. This is Dylan, even if my voice does sound a little funny right now as I'm still recovering from the tonsillectomy. I don't know, I can't hear it. I think I sound great, RJ, just like always. It's like Frank Sinatra or something.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't go that far, but what I
Bing
will say
Crosby,
is,
you're saying then?
I don't know, but you know what? It is great to hear your voice again. I will say that much. Glad to have you back. I have missed you, Dylan.
Oh no, I've really missed this. I'm super bummed that I haven't been able to be up there for camp or anything. I've just been stuck, following it all from so far away, it feels like. But yes, I'm doing well. Thanks to everybody for all the thoughts. Big thanks to everybody who reached out. Wishing me well in the recovery and everything. And then obviously massive thank you to RJ for holding down the fort as training camps kicked off here. And, you've done an incredible job of supporting me and also making sure that ECH has been doing a great job out there with all the coverage and everything that's been happening as we're rapidly approaching season 3. You're doing great, man. Thank you.
Thank you. That's nice to hear, Dylan. That's very kind of you.
Yeah. Tonsillectomy done. I guess just quick update on me for everybody because I hear everybody's been asking, and I've been getting lots of messages. Everything went well. I'm 13 days out from the surgery now. Most of the scabs have fallen off. My voice is back just in the last couple of days, so that we were able to do this. And yeah, I'm on to soft foods, and I'm getting closer to 2,000 calories a day. So yay. I'm telling you right now, the biggest problem through this whole thing, it was not the pain. I was able to manage the pain of everything just fine. It was the pain of having to watch all of the pizza and wings ads every Sunday watching football or every hockey thing or whatever. That was by far and away the hardest part of this whole experience, is just not being able to eat food, RJ. Boy, it's something you miss when you don't have it. Can you believe that?
I know, something we definitely take for granted, being able to eat food. But yeah, I've really been feeling for you over these last 2 weeks.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm feeling better. And in fact, I think I'm just about healthy enough to enjoy one of those awesome, big, warm German pretzels from Queen Anne Beerhall as we go into the segue into the sponsor. Thank you so much, Queen Anne Beerhall, for sponsoring the podcast as always. Yeah, I think I'm just about there, RJ. I think I could handle one of those. The salt might be an issue.
Yeah, definitely. You know what? I think your voice isn't quite 100% yet. Your segue game has not dropped off in the slightest.
Yep, nope. And you actually have some news about the beer hall and what's going to be taking place a little later on in this podcast.
That's right. So for this episode, we have some special guests later on after we talk about the Kraken and some training camp stuff. We've got actually owners of the beer hall, Justin and Gary. They would talk to me about the beer hall, the story kind of behind the hall, and the Seattle sports community too. They've got a really unique take and perspective on really everything that's happened in Seattle sports over the last few years, including the whole progression of the Kraken coming to town. And they've got some really good stories there. So stick around, listen to that. Also, they've got Oktoberfest coming up. Opening ceremony Wednesday night, the 27th. And they have a very special guest who will be coming to MC the opening ceremony. So keep listening. Later on in the pod, you'll find out who and what he might be wearing.
Oh. And I'm sure it's going to take a large leap for people to try to guess who that person might be as they listen to the Seattle Kraken podcast.
You'll never guess who it is.
You'll never guess who will be going to the German beer hall. Yeah, so that's all good. But before that, we got to talk about training camp, because training camp started. I mean, last time everybody was listening, it was the day before my surgery. And wouldn't you know it, RJ, just like we predicted, as I was sitting in the pre-op room, I already had the IV in. I get the email from Kraken PR with the training camp schedule. It was just absolutely perfect. But yeah, so training camp started, rookie camps happened. Tonight is the first preseason games. We're recording this before the preseason games have happened. Season is back. Like things are here, things are happening, RJ, and you've been able to be up there for everything. So I'll just kind of interview you a little bit about everything that's been going on up there, because I've I've been forced to miss it all out. I want to hear, and I'm sure everybody does as well. Real quick, though, just want to shout out to our photographer, Jen. I'll be putting on the video edition of this podcast a bunch of pictures from training camp that she's taken. So just want to say quick thank you to Jen for all the awesome pics. And then RJ, as we get into things, I mean, we had rookie camp, we've had training camp now. First thing that I always think of when it comes to training camp is training camp battles. Right. I want to know about the roster battles, the guys battling for those final spots on the roster. That's what, I always get excited about every year. So what's the latest as far as like kind of camp battles go from what you've been able to see?
Right. Well, I think we all want to know about the training camp battles, and there are some very interesting ones this season, right? With the fourth line certainly going to look very different with who's gone, the backup goaltender battle as well. And so that's something that I really wanted to ask Dave Haxtell about very early on. Like, what are you looking at from these players? What role do you want the fourth line to have? It's something we discussed in the last podcast. What are you looking at from these backup goalie battles? Like, are you looking at the preseason games? Are you looking at, how they're doing in practice and everything? And I will say he didn't give out a whole lot. He basically said it's too early to tell. And for the fourth line, as far as what their role is going to be, he said, well, it depends who's there. It depends who earns those spots and what they can do. So I think at this point in camp, he's still waiting to get that input, to get those results from guys as they go out and try and prove themselves. And they all play different games, certainly when we're talking about whether it's the fourth line or maybe the depth defenseman. They all have a different style of game. And I think he's just waiting to see how they show up and earn that opportunity, especially starting in the preseason games. I know nothing super interesting on that right now. And as far as the backup goalie battle too, I did ask, like, how do you evaluate that? What are you looking for? And he's like, well, it's a mix of the preseason games and in practice, I feel like he just wanted to say, they stop the puck, who stops the puck more, right? But it is something I did confirm that, goalie coach Steve Briere is going to weigh in heavily on, of course. And so he'll lean on him for some guidance there as well.
All right, so maybe it's a little early for the camp battles. Preseason, I guess that was a little over ambitious of me. But again, I've been stuck far away from everything. What about line combos? That's something that you should have had a little bit of an idea about now, with training camp having been going for about a week now. What kind of line combinations are we seeing? Because obviously you've got a ton of prospects at camp right now. You've got all the new additions from this past offseason. We've got Berkey coming back. Like what kinds of things are we seeing from Haxtell there?
Right. So I can give you a little bit better of an answer as far as the line combos. We've gotten a little bit more clarity on that. And of course, I want to give the normal caveat that preseason line combos don't necessarily mean anything. I think we might have mentioned that last podcast, that Haxtell's going to want to throw different things at the wall and see what sticks. And I think that starts with some of these preseason games coming up. But it does give you a bit of a hint of where his mind is at. I think there are certain combos you can't really read into, but others that you can a little bit more. And the first one I want to mention is the first line from last season, McCann, Beniers, Eberle. Those three have been together all training camp from the very start, have never been separated. It looks like they're going to be a line for the first preseason game tonight as well. I think Haxtell pretty clearly wants that to be his top line.
All right. Well, that makes sense, right? I mean, they were a dominant force together while they were playing. I mean, McCann went to a 40-goal season. Matty Beniers was really coming into his own, so that's not too surprising. What about some of the other lines we saw last season, right? Like, I mean, I think of, the Yanni Gord line with Tolvanen and Bjorkstrand. Are we seeing that one? The second line with Wenberg, are those ones staying together, or is it kind of just that first line?
No, those actually have been broken up just a little bit. So the Gord line, I know the Gord, Tolvanen, Bjorkstrand line that we were all big fans of has been broken up at least temporarily, right? And it's still early, but Ellie Tolvanen has kind of been taken off that line. Gord and Bjorkstrand have stayed together, but they've kind of rotated other guys through there. And then also we're seeing the second line, if you want to call it that, the Wenberg line. He's been playing with Andre Burakovsky and Jaden Schwartz, which we did see last season a lot. So that appears to have stuck. But Tolvanen has moved off the Gord line, and you know what? I think it's really interesting where they put him instead.
Okay, tell us then.
all right. I won't leave you in suspense any longer. So this line, I think, is probably the most interesting forward line combination that I've seen so far at camp, and that is Ellie Tolvanen at left wing, Shane Wright at center, and Kyler Yamamoto at right wing. So Dylan, doesn't that just on the surface sound really fun?
That sounds like the most fun line that you could probably put together, given everybody who's there at that camp. Actually, like that line just must be something to watch.
And we've questioned, right? If is Shane Wright, if he makes the roster, right? Is he either going to have to bump up to the third line? Are they going to put him on a fourth line? What does that look like? Are they going to kind of put him with some grinders there? But this line, I think, if you want Shane Wright around and you want him easing in into a spot, maybe in the fourth line, this is how you do it, I think, with an Ellie Tolvanen, with a Kyler Yamamoto, a line that has a ton of skill. And if you're giving them matchups against other teams' fourth lines, I mean, I think they can skate circles around them. Somebody asked me on Twitter, okay, well, how did that line look? And I just said fast. I mean, they looked really fast and skilled. And it's a line that I think could definitely outcompete other fourth lines. We'll see how it looks tonight. I think that's how the line rushes were going tonight. So we'll see how that looks against the Calgary Flames. But I'm kind of rooting for that line to stick together.
I really like the idea of that line, and I'm just thinking about it from like, oh, their playing styles, and yes, it is very much of a skill-based line, very much a speed-based line, and I think that does work really well for Shane Wright. I mean, we know what he can do kind of defensively, and the way he worked on so much of that during his major junior career. But I think of what he did with the Firebirds, the first stint he had with the Firebirds, not the playoff run, but that first group of games that he had way back early last season. And I think about how when he was playing in that top six role and they wanted him to develop his offensive game, how much he loved to attack in transition. And I'm thinking about him with Tolvanen or Yamamoto, and I'm just like, those guys can totally help him do that. Right? They can help him attack in transition, and then once they're in the offensive zone, we all know where Shane Wright likes to play, right? He likes to kind of be a little bit net front. He likes to find little gaps. You think about the first goal he scored against the Montreal Canadiens, and really all three potential goals he could have had in that first period, they were all the same thing of him just getting open kind of net front in the low slot, and then somebody from below the goal line getting the puck out to him. And I'm just thinking like both of those guys could do that expertly, right? Like if they got some sort of 3-man cycle game going, that thing could be so deadly.
Yeah, absolutely. And we kind of saw that a little bit. They've been doing scrimmages in between kind of each session of camp. And I really like being able to see them in that game type situation working together. And it's also something that Hackstall talked about, keeping that competitive level really high. And these aren't just, low effort scrimmages. These aren't captain skates. Guys are finishing their checks in these scrimmages. And that's part of that intensity level that Hackstall wants to bring. But seeing them all kind of work together, I've seen that in the game situation. Basically, what you're talking about, I would have thought that you'd have already seen the scrimmages, basically, given what you're illustrating, right? Because I've seen that happen in front of me already with that line.
Yeah, and just to be clear, this is my first time hearing all this info, everybody. He's
That's
not
true.
feeding me anything.
I'm filling in, Dylan, as you all are hearing it as well.
Yeah, so I love the idea of that line, but that does kind of leave some questions for me as for the other idea of what a fourth line is. And this is something that we've talked about the last couple of weeks as well, or going back to when we were building out lines. And that would be some sort of fourth line that Hackstall seemingly wanted last year, which was maybe a little bit more physical, a little bit more of a grinding line. I'm thinking about names like Brandon Tanev, Belmar, John Hayden. Is there another line that's maybe more those kinds of guys out there doing things, or does it seem like this right line might be the fourth line?
For right now, it seems like the right line, because when you look at where those other guys are, so Tanev has actually been playing with Gordon Bjorkstrand on that third line. So that's kind of the element that they've thrown in there with Gordon Bjorkstrand instead of Tolvanen. And he's been doing that job, maybe turning it into a little bit more of a grinding line than a scoring line, which it had been. But look, it can do both, right? But as far as like Belmar, Hayden, even a Cole Lind, those guys, or Ty Karche, those guys have been paired with prospects or AHLers. The line that I've seen with Belmar so far, he's been with Edward Chalet and Cameron Hughes. So, those are two guys who will not be on the Kraken this season, right? Hughes is going to start the year with the Firebirds, and Edward Chalet is going to be with the Barrie Colts in the OHL. Now, in Belmar's case, I don't think you can really read into that of him being outside the roster bubble, just because I'll talk about him a little bit later, but the leadership qualities, the personality, that is the guy I want to see on a line with Edward Chalet for as long as Chalet's in camp. That's the veteran I want to attach him to get him more comfortable with everything. So I don't think you can read into that too much. But Ty Karche, at least today, he's on a line with Carson Rakoff and Cole Lind. So that's one where, I mean, Rakoff is going to be in junior, but Karche and Lind together, I mean, that's something we've seen with the Firebirds. So, that might be the direction that's going. And then John Hayden, he's on a line with Logan Morrison and Billy Petman. So that's, that looks like a potential AHL line there as well. And we do have the Firebirds coaching staff, by the way. Dan and Jess have been working with the players a lot too. So sometimes they've been kind of working with those lines that, might be in Firebirds training camp. So I think right now they're trying to give Shane Wright the opportunity to earn that spot and have the fourth line look like that.
Very interesting. Very interesting. That was one of the biggest things I feel like everybody was looking forward to once training camp got underway, was seeing where Shane Wright was going to fit in. And obviously the big thing that's going to determine a lot of this is how they perform during the preseason, which of course kicks off tonight, and we'll have a better idea of things there. So if that's kind of what the lines have been, what have been the players that have stood out to you throughout this training camp process so far?
Right. So as far as players standing out, I just mentioned Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, and I have to talk about him because more off the ice as well, but on the ice, off the ice, both, he has stood out to me. First of all, Kraken fans, you are absolutely going to love him. Big personality, really funny guy. He's going to be a joy to cover all season. And I put on Twitter a couple video clips from his presser, how he greeted us. Good morning, everybody. And running out. Oh, God, really fun stuff. But I think you see instantly the value in bringing a guy like that into the team. Today, he stayed out really late after practice. He was the last guy off the ice. And you know what he was doing? He was working with younger players on faceoffs. Matty Beniers to start, worked with Beniers on faceoffs. And again, Bellemare is, I forget, do you remember offhand what his career faceoff percentage is? But it's very high.
It was very high. I mean, he had some seasons pushing 60%. So.
Yeah, but you had younger guys kind of lining up to try and learn tips and tricks from him. You had David Goyette spending a bunch of time with him. You had Tucker Robertson kind of getting in line behind Goyette, trying to overhear some of those tips and practice face-offs with Pierre-Edouard Bellemare. So I think, on the ice, he's going to do what he does. He's going to be a really solid fourth line option. But off the ice, the leadership is there, and he wants to take guys under his wing. So that's going to be huge for the Kraken this season. And so he's stood out to me. I mean, how could he not stand out, right? So that's been the first player that I think of. Also, Eeli Tolvanen. Dylan, you talked about moving him off the goal line. You talked about even having him as a healthy scratch potentially. I don't know. We don't know if he listens to the podcast or not. Probably not, but maybe he does. And maybe you lit a fire under him, because in those scrimmages, in those game type situations, I think he's looked the best out of any Kraken forward, really, most consistently. I mean, maybe it's that he's trying that extra little bit harder. Guys aren't maybe necessarily going 100% in these scrimmages, but he has had some highlight reel plays, both on offense and defense. And he's just looked really solid and kind of re-energized being on a new line.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, look, hey, that was just my plan all along, That's why I did that. Yeah. No, I mean, hey, look, I got to think that for him, it's you'd view any sort of situation like this as an opportunity, right? Especially given, how he came to the Kraken as somebody who's being waived and all of that. And I got to think it sounds like what they want to do with that Shane Wright line of having it be more of like a fast and skill and scoring type line. I know he got to do a lot of that on the Yanni Gourde line, having a line mate like Bjorkstrand. But we talked about it a lot through last season. Bjorkstrand's very much of an east-west kind of player. Tolvanen maybe isn't always that kind of guy. Maybe he feels, a little different being matched up with a guy like Shane Wright. Hey, look, here's this rookie, really high draft pick, someone that they very much want to build the future around. And hey, they want to maybe start him off on a line with me. If I can develop chemistry with him, that's the path to a long-term, future here in Seattle kind of thing, right? Like, you never know what could be going on in his head in that sort of situation. But I think anytime you do get moved off of a line, you do want to kind of, put your best foot forward with your new line mates, try to develop chemistry, try to, show the coaching staff whatever it is that they were hoping to get out of that group that they've put together. You want to go out there and do that. It sounds like that's what he's doing.
Yeah. Now, one more guy I want to talk about who's stood out to me, one, because I guess I kind of had an eye on him from the start, is Andre Burakovsky. And of course, coming off that season-ending groin injury, having surgery in the offseason, I was curious how he was going to look coming back from that injury. And in the first day of camp, I will say he looked hesitant. He did not look like he was kind of chasing pucks 100%. He looked a little bit worried about how that groin was doing. He was hunched over a lot. And so I had a little bit of concern after day one. Day two, he looked amazing. I mean, you look at the scrimmages, it was kind of night and day. It seemed like he finally felt the green light, like, okay, I can go for it now. That first day is over. Everything held up all right. And he was dangling around, guys. I forgot, just how skilled he was, because we haven't seen him for so many months, right? But yeah, he was just making highlight reel play after highlight reel play, and clearly one of the most skilled players out there. So he's going to add such an element back to this team that really I kind of forgot that he had. But making passes across the slot too, that was the other thing. You saw the vision, and that was there actually from day one. The skating just kind of wasn't there to match it. But when everything came together, Burakovsky looked great.
Yeah, no, that is fantastic to hear. I know that's, been one of the big off-season stories. Everybody was waiting for training camp to see how he would be, and who knows, they might have told him day one, hey, don't push it, don't go out there and do that kind of stuff. And then, they reevaluated him, and you never know. But it sounds like, yeah, everybody's looking good heading into these first preseason games. I'm super excited to see how they all look. We talked about a lot of guys, though, that are NHL veterans there. And one of the big other aspects of camp, and you touched on some of the lines earlier, would be the prospects that are there. And I think that's a big part of it. We talked a little bit about Shane Wright. I don't know if you have more that you want to talk about with him, but, what about other guys up there? I mean, you talked about Chalet being there. We know Jagger Firkus is there, Ty Nelson, Riker Evans. Like, there's a lot of big-time Kraken prospects there. How have they all been looking?
Right. So we'll kind of go a little rapid fire on the prospects, because I want to kind of touch on everybody just a little bit. I'll start with a little bit more on Shane Wright. He's just kind of been workmanlike. That's the word I would use to describe it, right? Nothing super flashy, nothing jumping off the page at me, but doing everything really solidly. So I'm interested to see how he looks in these preseason games, because, I mean, in training camp, he's just kind of been putting in the work. So, we'll see how that goes. Riker Evans, he's looked pretty good. I mean, he's stood out at times with being able to body guys out surprisingly well, given his size, puck possession, moving the puck, all that kind of thing, that we know that he's good at, right? He's had a really solid training camp. I still don't think the path is there for him as long as everybody's healthy. But he's doing what he can to try and force the issue. Let's see, Ty Cartier, another one I was interested to look at. He kind of looks like he did at the end of last season. He's got that big body that he's used a lot in the scrimmages. His shot still looks good. He was working on his shot a lot today after practice too. And he can rip it, especially from close range. He can pick those spots really well. I know we kind of knew that about him, but it's those things you get reminded of every year in camp, right? Let's see, who else? Ryan Winterton. Oh, yeah. He looks impressive. Yeah, I know he's not a name that you mentioned, but he is someone that's kind of jumped off the page at me a few times. Just with his size and skill combination, I think he's going to translate really well to the pro game. His shot is sneaky good. I mean, well, not even sneaky really. If you watch the OHL, his shot is just very good. But he's done a really good job with body positioning as well in those scrimmages and everything. I was interested to see how he did against some bigger players. And even though I did post that video of him getting just totally bodied out by Adam Larson, Larson's going to make a lot of guys, even established NHLers, look bad there. But Winterton still gave it a good effort. On defense, let's see, Ty Nelson. He's Ty Nelson. Like he looks the exact same, right? He's built like a fire hydrant. Guys aren't getting around him. He's got that bomb of a shot, just such a heavy shot, that we've come to know from him. And he seems really confident too. That's like, he doesn't look out of place. He doesn't look like one of the younger guys. He's just been solid. Of course, he's going to need, a couple more years before he gets up to this level, but, and working on the transitioning too, like, skating backwards to kind of turning with a forward, that still needs a little bit of work, but, give him some time with Jess Campbell and Dan Bilesman. I'm sure they'll fix that right up. Another young player that stood out to me, Ville Ottavainen. So he is a giant. I don't think he looked this gigantic 2 years ago when he was in camp, right? He must have grown another inch or two, but he is just towering over everybody out there. I mean, everybody except Alexiak, but having him against some of the younger players too, being in that group, I mean, he just towers over them. I think he still needs to develop a little bit more of a mean streak. I know it's just practice and everything. I want to see how he does in a game, but he has had a few plays where guys have kind of snuck to the inside against him and able to tap some pucks home where he has the size to make that impossible. So we'll see how he does in game situations, but he's someone I've noticed. Circling back to Edward Chalet, he's looked okay. I mean, look, I know after dev camp, he said, not the best, right? As far as his performance, I think he is still settling in a little bit. And you are seeing the progression from day to day in camp, but I think he just needs a little bit more time. The skill is there. The skill is apparent. I just think there's a comfort level. And it's tough too, because he was in Barrie Colt's training camp and having the preseason with them, then gets ripped away from that and brought here. I just think there's a little bit more comfort he needs to develop. And I think having Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, right, as centering his line, that is absolutely the way to do it. I think that tells you the team knows as well that he's just kind of got to settle in there a little bit more.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've been talking so long. Anything to add for any of these guys?
No, I mean, just with Chalet there, I had talked about it on Discord. I thought that there was a chance that they might not even bring him into camp just because, him coming over to North America for the first time, getting used to the North American style of game. He was settling in, it seemed like, through the preseason with Barrie very nicely. He was putting up good numbers. He was winning face-offs. Most important thing I loved. I think in his first game, he won 12 of 15 face-offs. I was like, that's all I need to see. But I was a little surprised that they actually kind of pulled him out of that situation. I thought there might be a chance that they'd just go ahead and keep him there, let him get comfortable in North America, let him get comfortable with his new team. I do get the value of having him around for an NHL training camp, especially because next year you're expecting him to maybe start pushing towards having a roster spot, even if he's more likely 2 years out. But yeah, I mean, I thought all along that might be something they would consider. Obviously, they brought him to camp, and yeah, I just think it's going to take time for him to adjust to North America and everything that involves, both on and off the ice. Pretty unsurprising there. What about, fan favorites? And I know you got a little bit of an interview in with him, Jagger Firkus.
Right. So Jagger Firkus, it's good to see him back at camp. He did get a haircut. So I know some fans maybe, not too happy about that. The long orange mane is gone, but hair a little bit shorter. But no, Jagger Firkus very much looks like himself. I think still needs a little bit of work, trying to win those board battles. And look, it's kind of the same story there. I don't think I haven't seen him win a board battle since last year's training camp, probably. But he's still working on it. One thing I want to see too is I've watched a lot of Kyler Yamamoto too, since he's one of the newer players coming to the team. And I think Firkus could learn a lot from him. Similar size, similar builds, right? But the difference in body position when you go into any kind of battle is just so clear. Yamamoto's really good at protecting the puck with his body, making sure that his whole body is in between the puck and the player trying to attack him whenever he's approaching contact. And with Jagger Firkus, it's just not there yet. He'll go into corners with his chest facing the opponent, right? And they're able to separate the man from the puck too easily. So I think that's an area to work on. So that's the one thing I wanted to cover too, because I didn't really ask him about that during the interview. I wanted to be the one interview that didn't ask him about his weight yet again, and all that kind of thing. But that's an area for improvement. But I think that'll happen as he gets toward the pro level. He's got one more season in Moose Jaw where, look, realistically, he can kind of get away with that down there, with playing board battles that way. But that'll come in time. But the thing I've been really impressed with Jagger Firkus though is the shooting, and I know that's been his strong suit for a while. But the way that he is changing up his shooting angle, I mean, it's beyond what he's been doing the last couple of years. You can tell it's something that he's been working on. I want to it's a shame I can't on the video version just fully demonstrate this with a hockey stick and everything. But he was on a breakaway the other day. He had a pass that sprung him for a breakaway, and he kept the puck so far out in front of him, dead center in front of him, not to his side, not winding up for a shot or everything. And it almost like he might go to his backhand or something. And then in just the blink of an eye, brought it into his side and really close to his skates, and had this really quick snap release that just totally fooled, I think it was Grubauer in the net. And Grubauer had no chance, put it right under the bar. And that's an NHL level release right there, and disguising the shot. Like, that's something you only see from a handful of NHLers, and Jagger Firkus is able to do that right now. So that's the thing that continues to stand out to me, is that shot. It is just so lethal. It's been beating NHL caliber goalies. It's been beating Grubauer. It's been beating Drieger. It's been beating Decord pretty consistently. It's just those same things he needs to work on.
Yeah, I mean, hey, we talked about that going back to the draft that the Kraken got him. If he was just a couple inches taller, 10, 15 pounds heavier, he would have been a first-round pick, right? Like, everybody knows that. It's always just been that size concern with him. But yeah, it's that shot he has is really something. You watch any Moose Jaw Warriors game, you're going to see that shot, and it's there. It's something to behold. And we have the audio of your interview with him that we'll also throw in to this podcast here as well coming up. All right. I mean, I guess before we get to the interviews, both with Jagger Firkus and with the Beerhall, RJ, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about from camp there before we get to the preseason games and everything that we'll break down next week?
Yeah, so we talked a lot about forwards. I feel like I didn't cover defense or goalies quite enough, so I'll add a little bit there. As far as like D pairs that we've seen, Dunn Larson has stuck together, of course. By the way, Dylan, Adam Larson has looked amazing. He is looking probably the most prepared, I'd say, of any of the defensemen in camp. He is in midseason form already. So I know you're not surprised by that knowledge, but I figured I'd throw that in for you anyway. Yep. He looks great.
Still love to hear it.
Yep. And then as far as our question from last or a couple weeks ago, I guess, about, the D pairs below that, right? Hackstall, looks like he's been trying it both ways. I've seen Dumoulin Schultz and Borgen Alexiak. I've seen Dumoulin Borgen, and then Alexiak Schultz. Yeah, so I've seen both of those combinations as well. And then more recently, he's split them up entirely, like Dumoulin with Ty Nelson, which I think will be good for this stage of camp. Having Ty Nelson with a veteran like that, and then having. Alexiak and Schultz aren't going to play today, but that's kind of what he's done, is he's broken that up for the time being. And then goalie, we know it's the big goalie competition, and for the backup spot with Chris Drieger and Joey Decord, it's been interesting. They had the scrimmages for the first 2 days, right? And the first day it was a 1-0 scrimmage. Like it was a full 2 periods, 20 minutes each, right? And both goalies looked really solid, and it was a good bounce back from Drieger also, because in the practice portion of camp, he was pretty shaky. I think we counted around here. Our buddy Zame, I think, counted. He missed 11 straight shots. 11 straight shots went in on him. I don't think I've seen that before.
No.
But it was the kind of thing where it was enough, like, okay, you start counting, right?
Yeah.
It was pretty darn rough, but he has bounced back pretty well after that. The 2 scrimmages in the last 2 days, he's looked pretty solid. So that's really good to see. And then Joey Decord, I mean, he had the shutout in the scrimmage, and he has just looked really, really good from start to now of camp. He is ready to come and take that backup job. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. He'll play tonight. So will Drieger. All 4 goalies that are dressed will have a chance to play some hockey tonight. So I think that'll be really interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm both with the defensive pairings, and then obviously for that backup job in net, these preseason games are going to tell us a lot. And I'm sure the later preseason games, as far as defensive pairings go, will probably tell us a little bit more, as more and more guys get sent back to junior or get assigned to the AHL, all that kind of stuff as camp gets going. So yeah, we'll just have to kind of wait and see there with what the defensive combos end up looking like. But I'm just so excited to have Kraken hockey back, RJ. I mean, we're going to get to see game action tonight. That's awesome.
I know. Only 5 hours away from right now as we're recording this. I'm so excited to go back to Climate Pledge and see a game there.
Yep. No. So next week on the podcast, we'll break down, preseason action, obviously more news and notes and stories from camp and everything with RJ. Hopefully my voice will be a little bit better than it is now. It should be better by then. So thanks everybody for joining us for this podcast. And then I'll hand it off to past RJ interviewing Jagger Firkus here, and then the interview with the Beerhall after that. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see y'all next time.
All right, so I'm here with Jagger Firkus after day 2 of rookie camp, second rookie camp. I mean, how does it feel this year kind of compared to last year coming in?
Yeah, it's a great time every time you get down to Seattle and get to see all the guys and all the other prospects, especially going into main camp now. Rookie camp kind of is over now, so things are going to get turned up a bit more serious and a bit more, I guess, exciting, and it's going to be pretty cool coming into my second camp here.
So one of the first things I heard the fans noticed is you got a haircut this year. How's it feeling with the short hair? Feel faster out there?
Yeah, I mean, it changed up a little bit. I guess I snipped off. The plan wasn't good to go this short, but it happened, so it's whatever. It'll come back.
Wasn't the plan, huh?
No, it wasn't.
Sometimes it works out like that. So speaking of the fans, I mean, you've been kind of a fan favorite, here in Moose Jaw and now here in Seattle also. Like, is that something you're aware of, something you see on social media? The fans really have taken a liking to you here.
No, I really haven't. Obviously, I'm super grateful for that, though. I think I try to be my best guy. I try to be myself, so I think that could be a reason why, and I think it's super awesome that I get to hold that, I guess.
So coming into camp this year, what are you hoping to get out of it personally, these couple weeks before you head back to Moose Jaw?
I think obviously it's my second camp now. I got my contract, so I got to show that I deserved it. And it's going back into junior this year. I just want to be ready. I want to make sure that I know what's coming next year or the year after in pro. And I think that's the biggest thing for me is take away what it takes and what it means to be a pro.
What's the expectations for your final season in Moose Jaw?
I think we're going to have a strong team in Moose Jaw. I think we should have a good season, so I think it'll be exciting, and I'm excited to get it going there, yeah.
What do you want to work on personally, skill-wise, to kind of get ready for the pro level maybe next year?
I think just compete. That's really all you can do at the next level. You can tell even at these camps how hard everyone competes, so that's one thing. I think I'm a good competitor, but I think every single day in practice in Moose Jaw, whether I'm tired or not, I got to make sure I'm competing my best and my hardest.
One of the things that really stands out is your shot, I think. You have a lot of different angles you can release from, different shots that you can throw at a goalie. Like, of all your shots, like, which one do you think is your greatest strength? And then also, like, kind of what looks would you want to maybe look at and get better?
Yeah, my greatest one would be my able to pull it in and kind of change the angle on the goalie. I think one I kind of want to work on is it's really just backhand before and you jump into a shot. It's a hard shot to kind of get down, but at the next level you can tell a lot of the great goal scorers in the NHL, they all have it, so that's something that I want to keep working on.
Sounds good. So last year I ran into your mom and your aunt here who were there watching training camp and everything. I had the chance to talk with them a little bit. It was like a year ago, so I'm trying to remember kind of how those conversations went. But they told me you like Seattle, the bigger city. I remember they say, "Oh, Jag's a city kid now."
Yeah, I think obviously I came from such a small town. It's a lot different being in big cities, but I have no problem with big cities. I enjoy kind of being busy. I like the busy atmosphere around me, so I enjoy it here a lot.
You talked about coming from a small town. Are you from Irma, Alberta? Really small, but of course like an NHL factory. I mean, what's the secret? Is there something in the water?
I think it's just everyone's so competitive. I think that's where my competitive nature came from too, is from the moment you start playing sports when you're a young kid, you just want to win and you want to be the best player you can be at. And I think that's kind of what happens in Irma is you all push each other, and then next thing you know, you have a couple NHL players and you have a couple NHL prospects coming from the town too.
And of course, being kind of so remote, right? I mean, I heard from your mom and your aunt that they drive like 6 hours to go see your games in Moose Jaw.
Yeah, I have a pretty crazy family. They're so supportive. I'm super thankful for what they do and how much they come and watch me, and they enjoy it as well. So I'm happy that I can put on a show for they can enjoy it.
And then I heard on the flip side of that, of course, they miss you at home sometimes. Maybe you can help me fill in the gaps here because it was a year ago. I'm trying to remember the story. They mentioned there was some school dance that you had to miss, and they brought like a little cutout or a picture of it or something. Do you know about that?
It was my brother's wedding.
Yeah,
it was my brother's wedding. I missed it for World Junior Camp, and they put up little cutouts of me at the wedding because obviously it was most of my family at the wedding, so I couldn't be there, which was unfortunate, but they put a little cutout, so I got lots of pictures from my family hanging out with me, I guess, a little bit, so it meant a lot.
Yeah, that's great. I'm sure they missed you. Anyway, thank you for joining me here, Jagger, and good luck the rest of camp.
Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. It's RJ here with a bonus episode of the Deep Dive podcast. So as you may know, Dylan is out of action right now, recovering from tonsil surgery. But while we won't have Dylan here today, I am joined by two very special guests, Justin Andrews and Gary Zaretti, two owners of the Queen Anne Beerhall. Now, if you're a member of the ECH community, you will no doubt recognize Queen Anne Beerhall. They're the primary sponsor of Emerald City Hockey all of last season. We've been telling you all about the hall and why it is such a great place to go watch a Kraken game. But I thought it'd be a good idea to let everyone get to meet the guys behind the beer hall. They have a unique perspective on the Kraken story and really the Seattle sports scene in general, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But they're also a big part of the ECH community. Last year, before all the playoff success, all the excitement that was built over the last 12 months, Dylan and I were looking for local businesses that believed in what we were doing and were willing to partner with us to allow ECH to keep running for another season. And these guys at the hall were the very first to take that leap with us. They believed in what we were doing, even though there wasn't really any on-ice success to back us up at that point. So we're super grateful for that. And we're excited to announce we'll be working with them for another season of awesome Kraken hockey this year. But anyway, I've had you guys wait long enough. Justin, Gary, how you doing?
Good, buddy. How are you, man?
Doing great.
Doing great. Glad to hear it. Now, I want to talk about your background with the hall a little bit, and what better place to start than the beginning, right? So how did you guys meet and start your journey with the beer hall? And also, I mean, you started at a very interesting time during a pandemic. I mean, what was it like starting operating a bar and restaurant during a pandemic?
Yeah, great question. And I guess it would be remiss not to say it's been a great partnership with you so far. Love getting to know you. Love being part of the community. Your followers are amazing, and it's brought a lot of support to the beer hall. So thank you for that, and thanks to all you listeners out there. You guys are amazing. Keep coming. We love you. So Gary and I actually strangely met many years ago. And it was very unmemorable meeting that we had, but it was through a mutual friend / family member. And fast forward a few years, in the middle of the pandemic, the Queen Anne Beerhall was under duress due to the market conditions and a number of other things. And we had an opportunity to step in and take ownership. That being said, my day job is something totally different. I'm not a restaurateur. I needed to find the right person, right partner, and I looked no further than to Mr. Gary Zaretti and reached out to him. We've had a number of conversations, and after twisting his arm a little bit, coaxed him into partnering with me here. And I'm sure his version might be a little bit different, but at the end of the day, it's been a really fun partnership working with this guy.
Yeah, the crazy part was that I was running Pike Brewing Company down at the market at the time. And we were right in the pandemic. I think that, when we opened here was September 2020. So, 8 months after shelter in place, like it was right in that time. And so I was kind of in that weird thing where I didn't know what I wanted to do. And this opportunity came up. Like he said, we met a couple times and it just seemed like a great opportunity. My experience was always in high volume beer focused spots. So for me, it was a perfect fit. And we went for it. And it really worked out.
Yeah. A lot of passion for beer, a lot of passion for food, and a lot of passion for sports. And I think that's kind of was really the premise of what we wanted to build here, was something for the community, something for the local Seattle community here, right on the edge of Queen Anne Hill, blocks from the Climate Pledge Arena. We knew that we had a really cool opportunity to do something amazing. And like Gary said, it was kind of a no-brainer. We did have to work through the pandemic. We had to work through some other variables, but at the end of the day, it was a great endeavor for both of us.
Yeah, no, was there any point at that during the pandemic where you're just like, oh man, this is crazy. What are we doing here?
There were many points. There was we had a couple times we had to shut down and reopen more than once.
Yeah. 2 months after we opened, we had to shut back down that December, January time. And it was actually a godsend. We had a chance to think about the menu and think about what we were trying to do. And we were so excited. So it actually worked. We brought back the right people that we love. We were able to hire the right people. If you've ever been here, our team is just incredible. I mean, from our servers to our bartenders to our chefs and our cooks and managers, they're just really great. And so we were able to, because of the pandemic, actually build that team slowly, which was incredible. It was great for us.
Yeah. So it's been a few years now. Thankfully, not as many concerns with the pandemic stuff. But in that time, you've really gotten to know the Seattle sports scene in a way that maybe not a lot of people have. It's just the beer hall is a central place for really any kind of sporting event that's going on in Seattle. What have you seen and learned about Seattle as a sports town since taking over the beer hall? And what makes it a really special and unique sports town?
Yeah, great question. I'll give my version too, and Gary very has a different perspective, which is great. But yeah, I grew up in Seattle. I grew up with the '79 Sonics being like world champions, and that was the pride of Seattle at that time. Lenny Wilkins and that whole crew. Growing up through the '90s and the Mariners, the reemergence of the Seahawks in the early 2000s when Paul Allen stepped in as an owner, and what we've had there. So Seattle is a sports town. We saw this really weird thing happen in early 2000s with the Sounders, this kind of minor league soccer team that had this fan base, and all of a sudden the MLS comes to town, and to see that transition from really kind of a, obscure sport in this community to now all of a sudden this huge fandom around the Sounders. And I think that has a lot to do with why hockey ended up landing here in Seattle. But we've got a great fan base here. We may not be as old and storied as like the Philadelphia fans or New York, but we still have a massive history here. Like I said, going back to the 70s with some really big franchises, and it's exciting. And what we've watched from a hockey perspective has been really cool. Again, growing up here, my high school was like the host high school for the Thunderbird players. So hockey's always been around in the community. There's, I've had friends that have played. So it's kind of been this underground sport here. But again, when the city announced that we're going to have a franchise, like all these closet fans, NHL fans kind of came out of the woodwork. And I mean, you see it every day. You see it on your show. We see it here in the beer hall. I mean, people here in Seattle love to get behind their teams. Good, bad, and different. We get called fair weather fans a lot, but you could say that about any city. Of course, when a team's hot, everyone's excited about it. When they're not, people kind of shut their mouths and put their head down and do whatever else they're doing. But it's been really fun watching it from this seat. And obviously Queen Anne, we're right in the middle of a lot of things happening here. And, we see everything from what's going on with the future of potentially Sonics coming back to town. We have some connections with the Mariners, the Seahawks. So it's really fun seeing all that come through here. And again, it all comes down to the fans. There's a ton of fans in the city, and they love to support their teams.
Yeah, it's funny because we're a little bit unusual in that there's a lot of people that come here that didn't really support many teams or weren't huge fans, but they know they can come here and have an incredible time with 300 other people and have it. When we saw during the Mariners playoffs, the Kraken playoffs last year, we have all our core Kraken fans, the ones that have season tickets, and in those. We saw people that were just buying brand new jerseys and outfits and coming in just because they knew they wanted to celebrate and watch a game with watch a game with 300 or 400 other people. And that's just been really cool. The Seattle Storm has a game and we're filled with 300 Storm fans, right? It's amazing because there's a place to gather. I remember the Super Bowl last year, we were full. We had almost 500 people, not a single football jersey. It was just people who were like, I don't really watch the Super Bowl, but if I want to have fun today, we're going to go to the hall. And it was crazy. I mean, we were packed. So that's the cool thing about for hockey is, and I hope that your listeners forgive me because I didn't watch hockey 2 years ago. I was just never.
There are plenty of our listeners that did not watch hockey 2 years ago.
Now I'm all over it, and I love it. And that's when we talk about becoming a hockey town. I think that we have a part in that because we have a place where people who don't have any experience with hockey can still come and talk to people who do and get excited. And when we hit that button and the lights go off and there's a goal, it just gives people chills and they're sold, right? And so I think we should get a percentage of the merch. Because I think that we're making a lot of fans out here too. So.
We're very invested in the experience, and that's something that both Gary and I hold very, very dear, and how we approach game day and everything we do here, down to like you mentioned earlier, our team, our food that's I think incredible, the things we do, the sounds that we play. The music that's on when you come in here, everything, every little detail, we want to have this amazing fan experience because every time you get to experience that, you have this core memory that now exists within you. And I have those core memories as a kid when I first went to my first Mariner game, first time I saw King Griffey Jr. hit a home run, all those little things, build this kind of like long-term fandom in you. And we get to be part of that. And that's what's I think really cool. And it's really special that we get to offer that to so many fans, their first hockey game, all the things that happen here. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. How did you craft that experience? You talk about the game day experience. And when I think of watching a hockey game at the Hall, I immediately think of that goal light that goes off. You've got the goal horn, you've got someone up on the tables during the playoffs. You have Jonathan up in full goalie gear on the tables. Like, how did you craft that hockey watching experience? Because it's something that, a couple of years ago, didn't really have any experience with or anything. But how did that all come together? Because it's a unique experience watching a game at the Hall versus really anywhere else.
Well, I mean, the first part of that, honestly, is the building, right? I mean, the building is made for that. The space and the high ceilings and that kind of thing. So that was one of the first things I thought was, we got to get some lights. We got to get, a buzzer. It's funny when Juice and I get together. I don't know if you can tell, but we just go crazy and we have ideas and we text each other at 3 a.m. Hey, I have a crazy idea. It's just what it is. And so that was kind of with that, we started building that experience and making sure that, if you've ever been here in between periods when we play Sweet Caroline, and you have 600 people, waving their beers and singing at the top of their lungs, it gives me chills to talk about it. Like it's that fun. It's a really cool experience. So now we have a button for the Seahawks and we have sirens for the Storm and we really try to add to that all the way. So
yeah, it's pretty cool. It's been intentional to a degree, but a lot of it, RJ, has been organic. Like, if you build it, they will come. We've kind of created this venue, but a lot of these things happen in real time, and like you mentioned, Jonathan, like some of that wackiness that comes off, it's just how we're feeling at that moment. And then something becomes a thing, Sweet Caroline, I think it was one time we played that and everyone's singing along. We're like, that's staying, And so I think a lot of it is, it's been organic and it's just kind of grown over time. And again, a lot of it is the fans too, the Hall stars that come in here, every week for the game. They bring that element too, the standing on the tables, the pounding, all that stuff. It just kind of happens naturally. It's what people do when they react to live sports and that kind of entertainment.
We're lucky to have 800-pound tables too. That helps a lot to have tables that'll support people. But no, Juice and I, we get together for dinner once a month just to talk about music. Yeah. And we literally name songs that we need to play in between periods. It's funny. Like it just, we love that experience stuff. So
yeah, you see the kind of thought that goes into that. And yeah, you do need sturdy tables at the Hall. I've seen some things at the Hall. You need sturdy tables. If it's Jonathan or Bowie hopping up there, yeah, you can't have any kind of light tables. That'll get you in trouble. Now, from your viewpoint, I want to talk a little bit about Seattle kind of becoming a hockey town. We touched on it a little bit earlier, but like from your viewpoint, how has Seattle become a hockey town? Because you've got to witness this whole transition from before the team even arrived, before the Kraken even arrived, to the inaugural season, which didn't go that well on the ice, to the big playoff run last year, where they're within a game of the conference finals, and everyone's excited for that. What has that transition been like for you guys, following it the whole way?
I mean, the second season was a big difference. The first season we had the first game we had a couple radio stations or news channels come out, and then we really didn't see them most of the rest of the year. They were on there during the sports on the news. They would talk about the Kraken. The second season was just different. We started playing really well, and NBC and ABC, they'd be here. Root Sports would be here. When we hit the playoffs, that first playoff series when we were on ESPN, like every single day. And it said Queen Anne Beerhall, Seattle, Washington, and the crazy people screaming. That leads to Hockey Town. I'm telling you, like it was just exciting. And we were getting texts from all around the country. Oh, we just saw you on TV. We saw you on ESPN. So the media had a lot to do with getting our town excited and, doing that. Like I said, so many new people come here that want to experience hockey for the first time. And it's been a total transformation, I think, over that last season.
Yeah, hockey is clearly an amazing sport. The NHL has got an amazing product, and for cities that don't know it or fans that haven't experienced it, I mean, it is something special, whether it's live or on TV. The way the NHL has their expansion draft and the success of the Golden Knights, that clearly paved the way for some Seattle fans to get excited, because you see a team completely non-existent, one day, to being in the Stanley Cup Finals a year later. I think that got a lot of hope here, and for us to be able to be like you said, a game away from the conference finals in our second year. That's incredible. You don't get that in the NBA. You don't get that in NFL. You don't get that in MLB. We haven't had expansion teams in a while, but you know how those teams get beat up for a decade before they become any relevancy. So I think just based on that alone, it's really cool that the NHL enables that kind of startup from a new franchise. And that's, I mean, beyond that, as Gary mentioned, just having the massive, I think, interest in sports that just exists here in Seattle and in hockey in general. There's always been an underlying hockey culture here in Seattle. Right. In some places more than others, but it's definitely emerged quite a bit. And people, I think, once they experience it one time, my kids included. My kids, they're young, but they would rather go to a Kraken game than any other event. They love it. They beg, for me to get a ticket and take them because it's such a fun fan experience. Being in the arena, the product that the NHL puts together between periods, everything. It's just a lot of excitement to it.
Yeah, hockey as a sport, I mean, it kind of sells itself. And I'm interested with you two personally. I know Gary was talking about, maybe a couple of years ago, didn't really know hockey that well. What is it about the sport that really kind of hooked you and got you into it? We've asked fans this. We've had like our Release the Fan special where we'll bring fans on and ask them their own personal journey with hockey and what it was about that sport that just, they fell in love with. I'm curious about your answers. I want to ask you two, what is it about hockey?
Well, I always ask everybody, do you remember the date that you figured out what icing is? That's the day you became awesome. And most people say, well, I'm not really still sure, but absolutely, I remember. So.
That's a good answer.
No, I guess there's a couple things. And I mean, let's be honest. My 11-year-old daughter, like, the best memory she has going to Kraken game was we were very lucky sitting on the ice and there was a fight in front of us. And someone got their tooth knocked out, and she was so excited. So let's be honest, hockey fights are fucking. Sorry, can I say that? Hockey fights are phenomenal. They're amazing. So I think that's one of the things that you don't get in other sports. But honestly, just the fast nature of it, the speed, the athleticism of those guys. I love the shots on goal when, especially when our goalies are defending that and the saves and. Just the way the fans get involved with it. But I think that's one of the most, I think, precious things about hockey is just it moves fast. It's constant. It's not a static game. It's never a dull moment. You can, and again, I love baseball. I'm a huge baseball fan, but sitting and watching a 3-hour
totally different
baseball game, I mean, you got to be into the game and watching every pitch. And there's a lot of pausing and waiting. Hockey, it is nonstop. That puck is moving the entire time. So I think that's, to me, that's one of the things I love the most is just the speed of the game.
Yeah, we definitely hear that a lot. And from you two personally to the city collectively, was there a moment when you kind of realized that Seattle had fallen in love with the Kraken? And was kind of a point, maybe it was during a game, during some kind of watch party. Was there a time that you can remember like, oh man, okay, the city's into it now?
I remember you and I talking about that last year. Like
just the difference for us here was funny because we're going to get that 400 people before a game, right? I mean, there's 18,000 people at the stadium, at the arena. We know we're going to get that crowd. And so what used to happen was at around 6:45, that crowd would leave. And then we'd be about half full with just folks that are here for dinner. And I just remember the month where suddenly those 400 people left and 300 or 400 people still then showed up to watch the game here that didn't have tickets. That was the difference to me because we know we're going to have people that have tickets. Those are huge hockey fans. They're crazy hockey fans. Yeah. But they would leave and there'd be no one else here. We'd show the game, but we did. And then when that happened, that was the transition to me. And it was probably midway through the second season, really.
Yeah. We saw it in real time, like watched it happen. And it was really cool to see that. And it's the game day crowd versus the I want to come and watch the game crowd. And that's when like, okay, this is something special. Obviously, I think it was when we had that little win streak last season on the road. Yep. That definitely sparked, I think, wait a minute, we're a legit team right now. This is no longer just some cute little startup franchise. Like we're actually contenders. So that was really cool to see.
Yeah, I remember we had our watch party there for the Chicago game, the final game of that long win streak. That was the NHL record-setting game, and man, it was awesome at the beer hall. And I think they scored 6 goals in the first period or something too. And the goal light just kept going off, and I'm like, okay, yeah, this is what it's all about.
And I honestly, you and your followers, your listeners had a lot to do with that happening here too. So like, I think the fact that we got a front row seat at that kind of that turn of the fandom here. I mean, man, you definitely were part of that magic too, man. And just having the watch parties here, again, excited to continue to do that this next season. This is going to be a lot of fun, but we definitely want to be the place to do these watch parties that when whether home or away, that we'll be here and we're ready to open everyone with open arms. Welcome everyone with open arms.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to that this coming season also. So I want to talk about your relationship with the Kraken, because one of the cool parts about the Hall is that you actually have a relationship with people on a lot of these different local teams, and the Kraken are no exception. How did you become kind of a favorite spot for players, wives and girlfriends, team staff? I heard so much, even before we started working together, from people around the Kraken about going to the beer hall. I'd heard stories before that, and so it kind of was a natural thing to reach out.
Before the arena was even done, I was out trimming trees one day, believe it or not, and just was taking a break, standing on the sidewalk, and started talking to some gentleman that was walking by. Turns out it was the CFO for the Kraken, and we just started chatting, and we're like, "Hey, bring your team down here, come down and have a meal and get to know us." And they were all excited about it. And then I think once Gary and I started getting to know some of the people around the office and stuff there, we actually were, maybe slightly intentionally, we brought some food up to them. We fed them a couple times. I think the best way to somebody's heart is through their stomach. But I think that's part of where some of that started, and just getting involved with the front office folks. From a player's perspective, we've had a variation of different things that have kind of come our way, but I think one of those was just getting to know one of the personnel that oversees all the players, and kind of building a relationship there, and his family and his friends. And once the players, a couple of them experienced it here for the first time. They continue to come back. Like you said, the wives and girlfriends, the wags as we call them.
Yeah, the wags. That's a crazy thing. They're going to these games on Saturdays, and they all know each other. So suddenly they just started taking my cell number, and I would have on like a Friday I would get all these different texts from all these players' wives and girlfriends, and we just would put them all at one table, call them the wags. They would have a blast. Like, it just was a cool spot for them to come before the game.
And their kids. We had one of their daughters. Whose daughter was that? Was saying, "Let's go Kraken" on the microphone.
Yeah, I remember that. It was Yanni Gord's daughter. Yeah. During the playoff game, I was right there for that.
The whole family comes in a lot.
Yeah, the Gords are big.
And then Grubauer's from Germany. Like, he loves all the German beer that we have are all his favorites. So he's actually coming in on the 23rd to kick off our Oktoberfest celebration.
Yeah,
he's actually going to tap the ceremonial keg.
He's going to be our Oktoberfest chancellor. I think that's our official title. For him.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Yeah, no, definitely have to be there for that. Do you know if he's going to be like wearing the lederhosen, the traditional outfit?
He asked us if we were going to be wearing
it,
which meant to me that he was going to be wearing it. So
that reminds me, we got to get these lederhosen hooked up.
Yep.
Okay, you got to get to the hall for that. Everybody listening, I know there's quite a few people be very interested to see that. That is awesome. So just later this month,
27th. Yeah, the 27th.
We actually
the 27th.
We can talk about it. We want to do a promotion this year, but for any game during the first hour of any game, and we'll call it the Grub Hour, and we'll extend our happy hour prices for an additional hour into the game. So
and I have a feeling, for just a sneak peek, there's probably going to be a button with some sound for that.
Ooh, okay.
Grub Hour.
Love it. Oh, that is awesome. So we heard the story, and I was actually going to.
Folks.
Yeah, yep, heard it here first. All the breaking news with this. I teased it on our last podcast too. I'm like, there's something going on later this month that I'll wait for it to come out where they can talk about it. But I did tease it a little bit, so now you all know. Get to the beer hall on the 27th. So we talked about the story with Yanni's daughter. That's one of the most adorable things that I have ever seen. I was going to bring it up myself if you guys didn't. But do you guys have any other like player or family stories? I guess ones that you can share. I know there's probably a bunch of stuff.
There's some that we can't share. But let's just say there's been some fun memories in here with some of the players. One of the things that I think was shocking for all of us, you just assume a couple things. You assume when you meet these players for the first time. I remember they all were in here one time, and I went and grabbed a bunch of shirts out of our storage. And what I didn't realize is they're all like mediums. I assume they're all going to be largest and extra large, but they're all like, no, medium. But the other thing that was really surprising was the fact that there's a couple guys that aren't 21, and we just, when you bring them in here, assume that, and all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, you're not 21 yet. You can't, they're not that they.
Sorry, Maddie.
There was no underage drinking happening here.
But the funny part is they're also in a town that's not a huge hockey town, or it wasn't a huge hockey town. They're not recognizable. They're not, it's not like they're not walking into a space and everyone, unless it's, on a Kraken night. Yeah. But most people aren't going to know. And they're just 21, 22-year-olds that are friends with our servers and our bartenders. And they just come in and hang out and no one says a word. Now they're starting to now have to give some autographs and people will recognize them now and stuff. But it's just tough. Like he said, people think they're just giant guys and they're not. They're just.
They look really big with
kids
the
that play
pads.
Hockey.
Yeah, that's one thing I definitely learned, because we go in the locker room, we see them, just after they play and everything. And I remember at the team equipment sale too, and looking and trying to, there were no shirts in my size for these guys, looking for their surplus equipment or whatever. It doesn't work like that.
We had to tell the Lewickies to stop coming in because the players didn't want to come in.
Oh, really?
The owners could be here on the same
that's
time.
Great. Yeah, no, I suppose you're right. That's kind of funny. So that is awesome. So I'll kind of segue in. Basically, we know the partnership with the Kraken, and we saw heck, how did the ESPN on the broadcast, because during the playoffs, whenever they flashed to somewhere that was just Seattle fans cheering, it was the beer hall, and you mentioned earlier. I saw you saying, how did that come together?
Yeah, all the local networks. Root Sports was obviously a big one, and they're local based here. ESPN's local affiliate was with Como, and they literally would just and I think some of those relationships started even during COVID. We were getting interviewed because we were one of the places that was open. We had a large seating capacity. We did a few things where we were helping feed people, and we've done some other non-for-profit type events and fundraising stuff that got us some connections with the media, which is always good. We love that. We don't do those things for that, but it's always a nice gift. But the relationships, I think Gary's, he's on speed dial with a lot of those folks.
A lot of reporters just text me, can I swing by today? Yeah, it's great. That particular one with ESPN was really Root Sports. So they were covering everyone. They were actually covering that first round. And so they were here every single night. And I think they, fed that to ESPN, so we were super appreciative of them for doing that. But yeah, that was a fun one. We had people in Canada calling us, going, "I just saw your plays on," it was really cool.
Yeah, you want that one shot, if you put your camera here, you're gonna get that one money shot of the crowd exploding with the goal or save, all that stuff. And fortunately for them, they got a lot more than one shot. They got a lot of footage, and it's cool seeing it now because. The promos on Root Sports were, every time it pops up on my TV, I'm like, there we are. So it's really cool. It's kind of surreal too. Like, we literally had no idea this was going to be our future. You can only dream, but just to actually see it, it's still surreal, and it's pretty incredible. It's been a really fun experience to be a part of. And man, grateful is an understatement. We're blessed. We're really lucky that it's been as great as it has been.
Yeah, and having been there in person, I'm really glad that that moment that was captured on the cameras and everything that was there for, for people to see who were watching the game, who maybe didn't get to be at the hall there. And I remember my dad texted me too, and just sent me a screenshot. He just pointed me out as I was walking around the hall. I was like, look, that's you. So that was pretty cool. So you mentioned those community events that you do. You do, a lot of charity events as well. And you partner with a lot of different areas of the community, which I think is really cool. And I mean, the one that I remember from last season, probably just because it was the most fun personally for me, was the chili cook-off. Getting to be a judge for that, which again, thank you so much. Whenever I get to judge a chili cook-off, that is like a life made.
That's when you know you've made it.
Cannot say no to that.
So anyway, you like to do lots of stuff like that, and that's bringing like a lot of the local brewers together too to make their chilies and everything. What other community events and partnerships are you most proud of at the hall?
I can tell you, just to plug one that's coming up this week. I'm not sure when this will air, but like on Wednesday the 13th, we have a Mariners event that is to raise money for an animal shelter in Okanagan in Washington. They need money to build a shelter. And we're going to have, the Mariners have a day game, and they're all coming after the game. We're going to have, Ty France will be here, and Kirby and JP Crawford. They've all committed. They're going to come and sign some autographs and guest bartend and guest serve. Just awesome that we have a space that now that everyone's so aware of, that we can raise real money for something, right? If we were small, there's a limit to what we can raise for the community. And so for us though, there's not, we fit so many people in here, and we can get so many people that are excited about donating and giving things. We've heard of Chris's Crew that gets veterans, disabled veterans to the Kraken games. We're one of their big sponsors, and we raise money for them twice a year with a huge event and raffle and stuff. And that's really rewarding for us. But it's just cool to be able to have a spot that has that many people, that has people that care and that want to donate money and help the community. So
at the end of the day, that's really what it boils down to. There's some amazing, big-hearted people in Seattle. We always kind of led from the idea of like, if we can help, we will. If we can participate, we will. We've done coat drives, blanket drives, food drives. We've got our 3-year anniversary party coming up on the 22nd. Gary, is that right?
So, yeah.
And we're gonna do a fundraiser for Maui, which again is I think very fresh still in a lot of people's hearts and minds that what's happened over there. And there's still a lot of people displaced and in need. So it's just, we've got a platform here, but we want to use it for the good of the city and for the good of the people. And the fact that we get to do that is pretty special.
Yeah, absolutely. And so yeah, if there's any kind of charitable event, like again with Maui, that it's not something you necessarily saw coming, but have a fundraiser for that and just and think about that. So that's definitely much appreciated in the community. Another reason we're so eager to partner with you guys is just seeing how you're all about the community and doing that kind of stuff.
And it comes from us being grateful, like you said. We're just so grateful that we're able to be in this position and so many people come in and spend their money here. It's a no-brainer to give back and to do that for people.
Yeah.
But Ecliptic Brewing and Maui Brewing Company are putting a beer together that we'll be able to serve here, and it'll be all the proceeds from that will go towards Maui Relief, and we'll do some raffles as well. I think we might even have some Kraken tickets to raffle.
So hear that, everyone? Yeah. Hey, these listeners, they're all about Kraken tickets if they get some Kraken tickets. So lastly, on a different note, but I have to talk about the food. I mean, if people listen to this podcast for a while, they know how much I love the food. I always kind of steer it in that direction for a lot of our beer hall promos, talk about all the great food that I've had there. I mean, you clearly take a lot of pride in the food that you serve. It's not just, a normal stagnant bar fare. There's lots of different options, different things on the menu that come up even for limited times. Like, how do you keep the menu fresh and keep building new things off of it?
Well, for starters, we're both total foodies. Like, I swear to God, I should be like 900 pounds the way I eat, but I love food. Always have. I love to cook. I love to eat. I love to go out. Gary's the same way. So I think just that love of that was one of the things that I think we both that both connected us as well. But I think that's part of the passion of having this place is, yeah, sure, we could do a lot of things average. We can cut costs and go with frozen this and that, whatever. But that's not who we are. We want really good quality, and we actually love it. Again, he told you about our 3 a.m. stupid ideas. Man, you should see our food texts and pictures we share back and forth. But I think the one story in particular, and I'll let Gary tell it, like we said this, and it was just kind of like the big, bold, audacious, stupid goal. But we're like, we want to have the best burger in Seattle, and not just say it, but actually back it up and do it. And we stated that right out of the gates. Like that was our first, like, kind of like I said, big stupid statement that we're gonna have the best burger in Seattle.
And it is pretty stupid because there's a lot of great burgers. You know, it's pretty tough to be that. And when we decided to smash burgers, what we wanted to do, we knew that smash burgers had gone crazy in Los Angeles, and that was just kind of the hub of where that was coming from. And so we grabbed our chef, and the three of us flew to LA, and we spent 3 days and 2 nights in Los Angeles. I think we had 27 different burgers.
Wow. That's all we ate for 3 days.
At the first 3, we get 3 burgers. By the end, it was 1 burger. Everyone take a bite. Like it was just so fun. We talked to line cooks. We took videos. We talked about buns. We talked to owners of those places. We went to all the very best, highly rated smash burger places and literally talked to people and came up with the best meat combination. You know, we have 70% brisket, 30% chuck with a specific grind that is perfect for smashing. If you don't know what a smash burger is, that lacing on the outside, you smash it into the grill so it gets crispy on the outside. And we came up with a great burger sauce, and we put this burger together, and we still cry every time we eat one. Like we literally yesterday, we were like, I mean, it's the most incredible. Oh, look, we have one right here.
Look at that.
There we go.
Look at that for those watching on YouTube.
It's not a huge burger. It's a 4-ounce thin smashed burger with a small bun. It's perfect. It's just kind of the perfect burger. You know, it's just gooey and ooey and amazing. So that's kind of how it is. You know, we're that dedicated to doing that. We were really lucky because we did have a pretzel recipe that was here before we got here. We have 2 full-time bakers on staff that bake pretzels fresh every day from scratch. So those awesome. Also, when people see that big fresh baked pretzel come out with our homemade cheese sauce, like those 2 items are like really the feature items that we have. And then we throw all the other stuff on there too. And we love our food. And that's the biggest comment we get is that people love our place, but when they have the food, they're like, I was surprised because I was expecting, you know, mozzarella sticks and, you know, and frozen chicken wings. And it wasn't that way. We were expecting pub food and it wasn't. You know, it's actually locally sourced, all made from scratch. We're pretty proud of it. And we're taking that same concept to our new location. If you don't, can I mention our new location?
Go for it. They need to know.
We're opening our second location in downtown Kirkland on the waterfront. It's going to be incredible. Juice can actually talk about that real quick.
That's the city I was born in and where I live now. So it's been a lifelong dream to have a place there. And obviously we've been, again, very fortunate with the success here at Queen Anne. So we want to capitalize and help bring that to Kirkland, to the east side. We get a lot of east side fans out here on the west side, but I'll tell you, it's a 45-minute commute. It's not easy every day. So we're really excited to have a place over on the east side that people can frequent. We'll bring our greatest hits over, our burger, our pretzel, our cheese curds, our wings, some of our really great dishes, but we'll continue to innovate and refine our menu. That's one of the things I think I love the most is we're all, like I said, we come up with ideas, but it's all about, you know, what is beer hall? What is the type of food that is like, that's the cool thing. Like we don't really we're not painted into a corner or we have to fit into a box of what kind of food we offer. I think originally it was more kind of German-based food, which we still have. We pay some tribute to some really essential German foods, but like the beauty is we've become this Northwest beer hall. That's kind of our vibe. That's kind of our shtick, which enables us to do a lot of things. We can have an amazing burger. We can have an all-you-can-eat crab night. We just flew in 200 pounds of Hatch green chili from Albuquerque, New Mexico, or from Hatch, New Mexico, I should say. And we roasted them all last weekend and made a litany of different dishes with Hatch green chilies, and people love that. That's what's fun. We kind of get to experiment, and not every idea we've had has been great. You know, the marshmallow peanut butter burger may not have been awesome.
20% of them make it. It's good. We have a lot of them. We have a lot of them. So it's going to be exciting. We're excited for Moss Bay. It's going to be Moss Bay. It's going to be called Moss Bay Hall. We're looking at somewhere around mid-November or so. So check, look at our social media and check it out. I do know one thing for your listeners that live on the east side, we are going to be the place to watch the Kraken. I mean, there's just no doubt.
Yeah.
And might be a button to push once in a while with a couple lights as well.
Yeah.
You know, so we know we're going to be that exciting place because we do need that for away games and home games, and just a place for Kraken fans to be. So
I think there might need to be a watch party sometime at some point there, RJ. Maybe.
Yep, I was going to mention we're looking at having a watch party really soon after the new location opens the new location. So that's going to be really fun. If you're on the east side, I mean, make sure to check that out. It is going to be the place to watch Kraken games out there. So check that out for sure. Thank you guys for stopping by and talking about the beer hall, talking about Kraken hockey. This has been so fun. I mean, you made me so hungry with all the food talk. I think I need to go have some lunch real quick. You have that burger there that needs to be
It literally was totally not planned. That was my lunch order, and it just got delivered. Like perfect timing.
Yep, it is almost noon, so it is definitely time to go eat now. But thank you guys for stopping in. Thank you so much for being a part of the ECH community, for allowing us to do what we do. Dylan and I are just so grateful for that. I mean, we couldn't do it without you. So thank you so much, and thanks for stopping by, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, buddy.
Hey, thanks, RJ.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
bye, everybody.
Thanks.
Hey everyone, before we go, we just wanted to give a quick shout out to all of our awesome patrons over at patreon.com/Emerald City Hockey, especially our Terror of the Deep patrons. Absurdly Sane, Alex, Andrew, Anonymous, Ben, Brad, Burnt Creme, Kaylin, Chris, Cody, Connor, Coop, Daryl, Denise, DJ Singletone, Duthin, Eli, Elizabeth, Evan, Habak, Gaby, Gary, Gregory, Harry Legionary, Jay, Jane, Jeremy, Jessica, Joni, Joseph, Josh, Joshua, Katie, Keegan, Kepler, Kitty B. Kraken,
Leanne, Light, Lonnie, Mark, Maya, Michael, Michelle, Noah, Nori, Nunya, Paige, Paul, Rayanne, Rebecca, Ryan, Sarah, Scott, C.A. Kraken, Sean B., Sean O., Sergey, Shannon, Shoeshine, Skeletal Tendency, Steve, Steven, Striatic, Pasty Kobold, Team YMIAT, Tank Commander Ty, Wendy, Strife, and Zane. Thank you so much for making all this possible. We really appreciate your support.